Fantasy Football Factory Conference Championship Sunday. This is going to be our final show of the season. We got 2 games, which is enough to cobble together a fantasy lineup, a DFS lineup. We got the King of South Mintzy, Moody on the sticks. I am Stephen Cheah. It's been a lot of fun this year. Let's end on a strong note. Huh? Let's end in the winner's circle. 2 games this week. We can go through them. First, we got Washington going to Philly. Philly 6-point favorites. There's a 47.5 total. Same total both games you just mentioned to me off camera. And then we got Buffalo going to Kansas City. KC 1.5-point favorites, also 47.5-point total. Any thoughts on these games, Mintzy?
Yeah, I think. Look, obviously, big surprise that Washington's here. But awesome story. It kind of reminds me, like, they're on a run that reminded me of that Bengals run, Burrow's second year, where they got hot in the playoffs, and kind of feels like they've got a sick run going. And man, that was what they did at Detroit, that was wild.
Yeah.
The Philly thing, obviously they almost ended up losing that game, but Philly's very complete team. No surprise that they're here. Saquon, went nuts again last week. Feels like they definitely have the more complete team than Washington, but Washington's hot. They're playing with nothing to lose. And then also, the subplot of Washington with that comeback against them, and I know Hurts got hurt, but, like, that sets this game up so well. That was Jaden. Jaden had 5 touchdowns. They beat him 35-34.
Yep. And
that was what clinched Washington's playoff berth. But should be a really fun matchup. And then the big story, 4th time in 5 years, Bills-Chiefs playoffs.
Yeah.
And you look at these games, Chiefs have obviously won all 3 of them in the playoffs, but the Bills have had regular season success against them. They just hadn't been able to do it in the playoffs. And, 2021, that was the craziest last 2 minutes of a football game in history when the Bills scored, the Chiefs scored, the Bills scored, and then the Mahomes 13 seconds thing. Can Josh Allen get him over the hump? Dave Portnoy with his $1 million Bills future.
He's been really good on these futures.
Yeah, well, I feel like everybody in America is pulling for Buffalo here.
Yeah,
the Bills are kind of America's team that are left in it, and they've been so snake bit, and Allen's been so good for a while now. Everybody wants to see them make the Super Bowl. But, yeah, I think we got 2 great matchups, especially Bills-Chiefs. I just think that's so classic.
Yeah, it's the class. If I'm being honest, I would have liked to see Baltimore, KC. I just think I think Baltimore's a better team. Buffalo had a great game plan. They went in, they ran the ball a lot, and they just let Baltimore implode. And a series of errors with the Mark Andrews drop, some of the play calling, 3 turnovers to none. That's what gets you beat. So I am looking forward to Buffalo. I hope Buffalo can get over this hump. And then I am not counting out Washington. Like, Jane Daniels, you're right. He's just on fire right now, and they're a fun team to watch. The pricing reflects that. So let's get into those pricing. There's not a ton of options, obviously. Quarterbacks, there's only 4. We're playing with $50,000. We're going with the classic version. 2 games on Sunday. Josh Allen is the likely MVP, the most expensive guy, $7,500. We got Jaden Daniels, $7,000. Jalen Hurts, $6,500, and then Patrick Mahomes, $6,000. So $500 in between each quarterback. Who stands out to you here? Mintzy.
It's interesting because Allen, I think I'm going with, I know Allen's the most expensive at $7,500, and I'm going to want to pay for Barkley. But the thing is, I think you still got to go. I think I'm going Allen here, and I'll tell you exactly why. It's the rushing thing. Because especially in the playoffs, he runs more, and he gets all those goal line carries. He scored 2 touchdowns. And even though Jaden can obviously run 2, on the goal line, they're not really running quarterback runs anymore.
Yep.
And so because of that, I'm going with Allen, even though it's $7,500, just because it's the rushing factor. And I think you can make a case for all 4 of these guys. But
certainly. But
the thing is Philly, I know Hurts is running, but it seems like they're really leaning on their running game in the playoffs. Hurts hadn't really been throwing the pass. I mean, he had a 43-yard rushing touchdown, but I kind of think that's got me off him. And, Mahomes, he's kind of – Tom Brady was like this latter part of his career. I mean, all he cares about is winning. The stats aren't what they used to be at all. And he also, their offensive tackles stink. Yeah. And I think that's really limiting them. So I don't, even though it's tempting at 6,000, I think I'm going Allen here at 7,500. What do you think?
Which one of these 2 games do you think has more shootout potential? I mean, they're both the same total.
I'm actually going to say Commanders Eagles. because that last one was a shootout. I feel like Bills Chiefs, like you think of it on paper, you think, Allen Mahomes shootout. But, like, you see the way the Chiefs have just played games all year. I mean, they hadn't been in any shootouts. They got a great defense.
Right.
They do just enough to win. They did it again against Houston. And, I mean, I think 47.5 feels a little high for that game.
I think it could be like a 17-14 game.
Yeah.
Like it kind of feels like that. But, at the end of the day, it could be, 31-28. Moody, who do you like quarterbacks?
Well, I'll say actually I'm kind of on the opposite side of you guys as far as the games that I think could be shootouts. I think Kansas City Buffalo has a better chance of being a shootout. I think that Jaden Daniels outside in what could be another snowy game possibly is something we haven't factored in yet, something we haven't really seen from him. Could that affect him? And so I personally think that could be a lower scoring game. But as far as the quarterback position is concerned, I'm actually going Patrick Mahomes at 6K. One thing I'm trying to do this week is be more contrarian with my lineup. Just because there's so few players to pick from. I think you're going to have a lot of similar lineups out there if you play the top guys. So I'm going to try and kind of go a little contrarian. I'm going Mahomes. Lamar threw the ball pretty well against Buffalo last week. I think that there's going to be some room for Patrick Mahomes to make something happen. So I like Mahomes at 6K. Obviously, he's the cheapest of the 4 quarterbacks, so I'm saving money elsewhere as well. I'm going to go with Patrick Mahomes in a game that I personally think could be the higher scoring game.
I'm going to stay on the Jaden Daniels train. I haven't fully locked this in, but, I mean, he's just on fire, and he's in a – I expect both these games to be fairly low scoring, but in a game that could get wild, like we know Philly's going to run the ball, but Washington, like, I don't think they're going to be able to have the same success running the ball, so I think this is going to have to go to the air just like they did against Detroit. Philly, obviously a much better pass defense than Detroit, but we have seen Jaden Daniels have success against Philly. Give me Jaden Daniels for now to start a quarterback that is subject to change. All right, running backs. Saquon Barkley, who has the highest rushing total I've ever seen. And I think I've been betting Saquon Super Bowl MVP since the game ended, or since the Ravens were eliminated. I have it at 8-1. I'm excited about that. I hope he goes to Super Bowl and wins Super Bowl MVP. That being said, and I have maybe the worst fantasy take ever saying don't draft Saquon this year at the 22,000-yard season. 128.5 yards is a lot.
Yeah.
That's an insane line. You're basically banking on him breaking a 50-yard run, which, that certainly could happen, and he's done it a lot. But in the NFC Championship game against, a division rival, that's a lot. That's so many. I might have to take the under on that. And he could finish with 120. I'd be happy. He could finish 127. I'd be happy. 128. But that is such a high number. He is $8,600, most expensive player by far in this DFS slate. We got James Cook, $6,900. Brian Robinson Jr., $5,600. Kareem Hunt, $5,400. Austin Eckler, $5,300. Isaiah Pacheco, $5,200. Kenny Gainwell, $4,600. Ty Johnson, $4,400. Ray Davis, $4,300. Samaje Perine, $4,200. Jeremy McNichols and Chris Rodriguez Jr., both $4,000. Minty, who stands out to you here?
Well, so the name of what Moody said about the contrarian thing, I agree that Barkley's is too high. Is there any way to like pull off a lineup without Barkley? Because it's like, how do you even do it when you look at all the rest of these options? I mean, Cook is very solid, but all the rest of these guys, I mean, Washington splitting time with Robinson and Eckler. And then the Chiefs running game's a mess. I was way wrong on Pacheco last week. He's just not healthy.
Yeah.
He just isn't himself right now.
Yeah.
And so I just don't see how you can not take Saquon. I'm trying to find a way to not do it to go contrarian, but I just don't see how.
Yeah, I mean, he's going to be in, like, at this point you can pretty much get every player you want and not have to worry much about the $50,000 salary cap. So I think it's going to be very hard to not put, like, I expect Saquon to be on 95+% of rosters, and that might be a low estimate. I mean, his rushing total is double probably what James Cook's is, so it's going to be hard to avoid. But what running backs? Obviously, everyone's on Saquon, so let's be on Saquon. I don't hate that. Saquon's going to be in my lineup, but what other backs stand out to you, Mintzy?
I don't trust Brian Robinson. I just don't. I know he had a touch. He did okay last week, but I'm thinking about going Eckler because the PPR thing.
Yep.
Yeah, he's been catching balls. I do like James Cook, but I don't have a problem with him. But KC does have a really, really good run defense. Buffalo's done a good job staying committed to the run this year, though. Yeah. They really have. But I'm thinking about going Eckler.
Okay.
But, it's not a lot of options here. This is the problem with the 2 games.
Yeah. Moody, who do you like at running back?
So I will definitely have Saquon in my lineup. I'm going contrarian elsewhere, but you just have to play Saquon. I don't know how you can't. I understand he's the most expensive player. He's going to be in my lineup. And I am also on Austin Eckler, Mincy. Everybody's talking about the second game between the Commanders and the Eagles, and they seem to be forgetting about the first game, which was definitely the worst game of Jaden Daniels' career. 1 touchdown, 1 interception. But the player that really popped in that game was Austin Eckler. He had 8 catches for 89 yards because you cannot run against Philadelphia. They're so stout and so good up front that it takes away running between the tackles. And I think you're going to see something similar again with Jaden Daniels on the road in the cold. They're going to need to get it out quick. They're going to need Eckler to be a factor. And we saw Eckler getting handoffs as well. So he's going to get some touches in the run game. And I definitely think he's going to have to be a big factor in the passing game. And cheap, 5,300. I'm going Barkley and Eckler.
I am also going Barkley and Eckler. And one other guy I'm going to be flexing is Kareem Hunt. The Chiefs have shown a commitment to the run, and Patrick Mahomes is going to throw the ball, but as Mincy mentioned, Isaiah Pacheco did not look very good last week. So give me Kareem Hunt, also a guy who gets a lot of goal line carries.
Yeah, no, he's the goal line guy. He's the goal line guy.
Yeah. I also, I don't hate if you want to go super contrarian, going Samaje Perine, because the Bills give up a ton of catches to running backs, and he is usually the guy that's going to be catching it. He's $4,200. All right, wide receivers, starting off with book club president of the wide receivers, A.J. Brown, $6,800. Terry McLaurin right behind him, $6,700. Big drop to Devontae Smith, $5,800. Then we got Khalil Shakir, $5,700. The dual threat of rushing and receiving, Xavier Worthy, $55. Big drop down to DeAndre Hopkins at $47. Sammy Brown, $44. Hollywood Brown, $4,200. Amari Cooper, where have you been? $4,100. Olamide Zaccheaus, $3,900. Keon Coleman, $3,700. Curtis Samuel, former King of the End Zone winner, netting everybody a massive bonus bet. $3,500. Jahan Dotson, $34,000. Mac Hollins, $33,000. Juju Smith-Schuster, $32,000. Jamison Crowder, $3,100. And Justin Watson, $3,000. Who are you clocking in with at receiver? Moody.
So I'm gonna have Terry McLaurin in my lineup for sure. I think you just have to. He has been the most reliable number 1 target for any quarterback to this point in the season of the remaining 4 teams. So I'm going to have McLaurin. I'm going Xavier Worthy as well to stack with Patrick Mahomes. And then my third one is really up in the air for me. I want to go with Khalil Shakir, but I'm a little bit worried that McDuffie's going to be on him a bit, and McDuffie's so damn good.
He's very good.
So I may go DeAndre Hopkins, or I may go cheaper and take a shot on Keon Coleman. This is why the Bills drafted Keon Coleman to be, that number 2 threat. I think there's a chance this could be a good game for him. He's fairly cheap. He's $3,700. The problem is, deciphering who that number 2 receiver for the Bills is going to be has been tough this year. But Keon Coleman is someone I'm looking at. But for sure, I'm going to have McLaurin and Worthy in my lineup. And then my debate will be between Shakir, Hopkins, who didn't do a damn thing last week, and then Keon Coleman.
This is a very old game, so it's hard to be an apples-to-apples comparison. But in that game, Mincy was talking about the 13 seconds left a couple of years ago. The guy that had the big game for Buffalo was a guy with a similar body type to Keon Coleman as Gabe Davis.
Yeah, 200 yards and 4 touchdowns.
Yeah, so I like the Keon Coleman play there. That you're thinking about that. Mincy, who you got at receiver?
Man, so it's similar. I'm going Worthy. So when you looked at KC last week, no receivers caught balls other than Worthy. Mm-hmm. That's pretty damning. Yeah. And they're doing a good job. They're just creating touches for him. You've really seen him come on the last half of the year. So I'm going Worthy. The debate, you can pretty much take either A.J. Brown or McLaurin. McLaurin, you just trust Jaden throwing the ball right now a little more. And the other thing with Philly, with Devontae Smith and Goddard, they've got more weapons. So, like, AJ's a hell of a player, but, like, there's other guys out there. Mm-hmm. So I'm leaning toward McLaurin. McLaurin had a bad first game against Philly. Quinyon Mitchell shut him down, but he had a lot better game in the second game. Mm-hmm. And it just seems like he's on one. This is the first time he's ever been in the playoffs. And, I mean, he's looked awesome the last couple of weeks. So I'm going with them two. The third one is really tough. I like what Moody's saying about Keon Coleman. God, man, this is just brutal looking at it because I agree with the Shakir thing. I mean, I was kind of leaning Shakir, but I am because it's like it seems like he doesn't have a high floor really, but he always gets 60 or 70 yards, and I think that might be enough because it's boom or bust.
4-game slate, 47.5 point totals that could get the job done. Yeah,
it's tough because like you're also looking for who could catch the long, but like the Bills is hard to read, like we said. You know, you could make a case for De'Ami Brown or Zacchaeus. Zacchaeus had a good game against Philly last time. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But the problem is De'Ami Brown stepping up. Zacchaeus was the number 2, and now that's up in the air.
Yep.
So I think I'm leaning towards Shakir and just spending the money on it.
Yeah. Just because the dollars work out that way, I'm going to take A.J. Brown, and I don't love it. He was horrible last week. 7 targets. I think he had 1 catch, 5 yards, maybe 2 catches. But terrible game from A.J. Brown. But, I mean, $6,800, I basically have the choice the way I built my lineup between Zacchaeus and A.J. Brown. Like, that's how much money I have to play with. So I'm going to take A.J. Brown. His ceiling is way higher. So give me A.J. Brown in that. I am on the worthy train, and then De'Ami Brown, he's just been red hot this playoff, so I'm going to continue to ride him. I have him in my stack with Daniels right now. All this is subject to change. I just kind of threw this together this morning, but with some research from last night, we're going to have to read press clippings and all that stuff, see what the coaches are saying in press conferences, watch a little tape and so on. But Keon Coleman is certainly on my radar at $3,700. I think this is the most interesting market this weekend. It's tight. Oh, sorry, Moody, you got something?
Yeah, well, no, real quick. I wanted to ask you guys, who do you think will have a better week or a more impactful week? Amari Cooper or DeAndre Hopkins? 2 guys that both teams traded for to be a difference maker this time of year, but neither one of them have made a difference. Like I think Cooper had 1 catch, no catches for Hopkins. Like, which one of those guys is actually going to step up and be a difference maker for their team in that game?
I would say DeAndre Hopkins, but I mean, I don't think either are big time guys at this point in their careers. And you know, given the offseason, like they weren't in training camp with these teams, it's very hard to go into a new place, new city, new state, get acclimated to the playbook and perform in like a 2.5 month time period. So against the highest level of competition. So give me Hopkins, I guess, but I'm not super big in it. Or Hopkins, I guess, had the full offseason.
No, I mean, they traded for him in the middle of the year.
Oh, yes.
They traded for him because of Tennessee because it was after everybody got hurt.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, it's tough. I don't really have an answer because I don't want either one of them.
Yeah.
And honestly, I'm gonna say Hopkins because Amari Cooper cost me my $500 fantasy league, so I'm gonna be spiteful.
It's crazy that a 15 target game and then just like.
Yeah, I lost by 1 ball. I would have won my. I mean, it just anyway. Sorry, nobody wants to hear about it. But I wish I had the $4,000. I would have won.
Yeah. The most interesting market this weekend, I think, in DFS is the tight end market. You got Travis Kelce top of the market, $6,000. He was not good against Buffalo earlier this season. Dallas Goedert, $4,500. Zach Ertz going against his old team and a little maybe Nick Sirianni personal stuff going on, $4,300. Big drop to Dalton Kincaid, $3,600. Noah Gray, sneaky guy, $3,000. Dawson Knox, who's been on the stat sheet the past couple weeks, $2,600. And Grant Calcaterra, $2,500. Mincy, who are you rolling with at tight end?
All right, this is interesting, but I've spent a lot of money already, so I think I'm going Dawson Knox, $2,600, because I'm out of money. You know, I've spent.
Really?
I've gone elite players everywhere, and it's not that I love him. It's just that I've spent too much money. And the thing is Kelce always goes off in playoffs. He had 109 last week, but Buffalo's done a good job against him.
Yeah,
and they've played a lot of games.
Yep.
And so they're really familiar with him. And so I think Buffalo is going to try to take Kelce away and make the Chiefs throw the receivers. So I'm going to go a hunch. I know Knox is extremely cheap, but I'm going to try to save the money there.
All right. Moody, who you got at tight end?
I am going with Travis Kelce at $6K, mainly because I have Patrick Mahomes in there. I understand that Buffalo was good against him during the regular season, but this is playoff Travis Kelce. He has been sensational. They just find ways to get him the football. I don't think he's going to have this 120-yard game, but I could see him putting up 7 for 80 and a score, and I think that's going to be pretty good in this market personally. So I like Kelce at 6K, and then there's a pretty good chance that I'm going to try and fit Zach Ertz into my flex. I'm debating on him and maybe like DeAndre Hopkins, but I think I'm going to probably end up playing Ertz in my flex. He's been the security blanket for Jaden Daniels, and I think he's going to have to be once again. And you just mentioned the revenge factor against his old team. I think that's in play as well.
There's one guy I'm going with a tight end. I like to save my plant your flag guy at the end, but I have to go. I mean, there's not very many options, so I'm going to talk about him right now. It's Dalton Kincaid. He hasn't been very good this entire season. I mean, he was were you on him as T3 or like people?
Oh, yeah.
And that's not just you. Like the whole industry is very high on Dalton Kincaid. He has disappointed consistently. That being said, KYP, know your personnel. You're going against the Kansas City Chiefs, and they cannot guard tight ends. Dalton Kincaid is going to have a massive game this weekend. Book it. Dalton Kincaid, 3,600.
Sounds like some props coming on that too.
Oh, yeah. All right, let's get into defenses. We got 4 to choose from. Eagles, top of the market, 3,300. Chiefs, 3,100. Bills, 2,900. Commanders, 2,700. Moody, let's start with you.
I think this is the toughest one to pick of the week, right? You only get 4. I would lean to. I think I'm going with Philadelphia here at 3,300 just because they are the best defense. I understand that Jaden is absolutely cooking, but they're really the only defense that shut down Jaden this season. And so because of that, I think I'm going to go with Philadelphia. Their run defense is so good. It really negates a big half of what you do offensively. It's going to put the whole game on Jaden. He's going to have to play out of his mind here. I think I'm going Philadelphia at 3,300.
Okay. Mintz, who you got on?
I mean, I think you can throw coins in the air here because it's because the thing is usually I would lean KC because how good their D is, and Allen used to turn the ball over, but Allen hasn't really turned the ball over lately.
Yeah.
And so that kind of negates that value. I am going to go – I'm still going to go with KC. I mean, but none of these are great.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the Eagles defense just because they're so good. And, like, when you look at the 4 quarterbacks, like I'm not the biggest Jalen Hurts fit, but he doesn't really turn the ball over very much. I think the rookie quarterback has the highest likelihood to turn it over, and that's really my only reason for going with the Eagles as well as they're at home. But all right, plant your flag guy of the week. I already went on my Dalton Kincaid rant. Mincy, who you got in all of your fantasy lineups this week?
Man, my playing my flag guy this week is Xavier Worthy. I just think the biggest thing, Buffalo's going to try to take away the tight end. I mean, I know Kelce will probably still get some. KC has no trust in any other receivers.
Yep.
I mean, like that was the thing that was damning. You watched that game against the Texans. I mean, they tried to take one deep shot to Hollywood Brown. Hopkins is non-existent. The thing with Worthy, they're going to create – it's not just him running go routes. I mean, they're running all kinds of quick outs. They're running bubble screens. He's getting handoffs. They're going to create 8 to 10 touches for him, and I think that's enough to plant my flag at 5,500.
All right, Moody, who you got?
I was going to go Xavier Worthy as well for all the reasons Mincy just said. They're going to manufacture him touches. But I'll go with a guy that is going to be in my lineup for sure. It's Austin Eckler at 5,300. I go back to game 1, 8 catches for 89 yards. Looked great last week in the win against the Lions. That Philly front is so good. The pass rush is so good. Jaden's going to have to get rid of the ball quickly. Who better than Austin Eckler to have a big performance against the Eagles? I could see him. I mean, he might get 10 catches in this game. Especially if they fall behind and they have to start throwing it, there's a chance he could get 8 to 10 grabs. So I like Austin Eckler coming out of the backfield for Jaden Daniels. Eckler is my plant your flag play of the week at 5,300.
Okay. And I want to throw one more thing at you guys. So DraftKings has been running this awesome King of the End Zone crown.
Amazing.
Giving away $2 million in bonus bets per NFL Sunday. Now, one of the loopholes is that so you basically opt into this promo and you pick the guy to have the longest touchdown. The biggest winner was Curtis Samuel. He had like a 60-yard touchdown from Josh Allen on the first Sunday. That netted people that bet him. You can bet just $5 is the minimum. $13,699 in bonus bets, and they came in $1,000 increments with the leftover being its own bonus bet. I actually hit it on the Monday night. I had the Rams defense, but a little hack is that you can parlay. So you can double or even triple your chances. There's 2 games. So if you want to do players in separate games in a parlay, you can do 2. You can pick 2 for King of the End Zone. But if you want to pick one game, you can pick 3, as long as they're not both defenses in the same game. So just a little cheat. But who are some guys that pop into your head as guys that could potentially be a nice long shot King of the End Zone? Because, I mean, looking at the board, like Saquon Barkley is going to be a massive favorite.
Yeah, and you saw when they won, I mean, you get 40 or $50. Which
is, certainly nice, but let's do some big game hunting here. Curtis Samuel's nice. He's certainly an option. Does anyone pop into your head as someone that could get a really long touchdown this week?
All right, I'm going to do a same game with KC Buffalo. I'm throwing Hollywood Brown in there because they took a deep shot to him last week. Okay. Samuel, again, just because he could randomly catch one. And then the third person in that game, who would I go? Worthy's too obvious. Worthy's like too obvious. I'm trying to get those long shots. Maybe Keon Coleman, even though he's more of a red zone guy. He's not like a
Matt Collins, maybe.
Yeah, but you got to think of you're trying to find those random off the grid guys.
Yeah,
is the key. So I think I'm going to go Samuel, Hollywood Brown, and one more in that game.
Moody, who do you like for King of the End Zone this week? A long shot.
Yeah, these are. I'm going with some names that probably nobody will run out there. I'm going to throw one out. I do like the Matt Collins. I think he's someone worth considering. He's got burners. Maybe Jahan Dotson. Super random, right? A guy that was originally drafted to be a dude that could beat teams down the field. I think he could get a look down the field. And then maybe De'Ami Brown. We saw him have a long catch in that win against the Lions. They do run him down the field as well, and he's got game-breaking speed. So those are 3 that I'd be looking at: Matt Collins, De'Ami Brown, and then Jahan Dotson as well.
I'm going to be in that same game. I do really like De'Ami Brown. I think 4 guys that I would consider are De'Ami Brown, Olamide Zaccheaus, Jahan Dotson. No, I'm not on Jahan Dotson, but Austin Eckler could certainly break one or make some guys miss in the open field. And then one I think fairly obvious, but could be a little bit underplayed, especially because you have to use the token on this player. Would anybody be surprised if Jaden Daniels just busted a 70-yard run for a touchdown? Like, people, Jaden Daniels, not really he's not Josh Allen as far as, give him the ball and have him put it over the line. Like, they have Brian Robinson Jr. for that. They have a plethora of guys that can do that. It's not typically Jaden Daniels, but for a long touchdown run, this guy's got game-breaking speed. Take a shot. So those are a couple guys to consider. I'm gonna be in that game.
Super long shot Kenneth Gainwell too, maybe.
Yeah,
because he's been getting a couple carries and catches balls.
Absolutely.
Well, this one may be more popular, but AJ Brown is somebody I'll probably put on my ticket because just he's a real game changer. Like, I would not be surprised to see him get one-on-one coverage at some point. Jalen Hurts takes a shot to him downfield. He breaks a tackle and scores the longest touchdown. Would not shock me at all if it was AJ Brown. So I'll probably put AJ Brown and then 2 of those other 3 that I mentioned.
Yeah. Okay, so this is a final episode of our year. Thank you to everyone who's been rocking with us. Shout out to Moody for producing all season long for the King of South Mincy.
Sad football's ending.
I mean, this is the best Sunday of football of the year. This in week 1, really, and then Super Bowl Sunday. I mean,
that's true.
It's a fitting end to a great season. But thank you to everybody who's been watching, listening. We appreciate you guys for the King of South Mincy. For Moody, I'm Stephen Cheah. Hopefully we end on a good note. We'll see you in the winner's circle.
The crown is yours.